Chapter 5. The living always stand on the shoulders of the dead. It is the nature of human advancement. A saying of old Earth. Jesse called a staff meeting on the top floor of the headquarters mansion. The Plaz-windowed conference chamber was insulated against Dune World's unrelenting sun. Through the Plaz, he had a view in all directions: the desert, the crags, the spaceport landing zones, and the scattered buildings of Carthage. Although the alloy-paneled room had been swept clean and scrubbed that day by household staff, a layer of gritty dust already covered the furniture and floor. Jesse smeared a finger across the table's surface, looked at the mark. Such conditions would be his constant companion for some time. Esmar Tuek and Gurney Halleck entered the room with a new spice foreman, William English. A houseman in a short brown cloak brought a steaming pot of spice coffee with 4 cups and then departed, closing the door behind him. Before beginning, Jesse moved around the table and poured the rich, aromatic coffee for his companions, demonstrating that he was different from other noblemen. "I was greatly disturbed by what I saw during yesterday's inspection tour. The Hoskiners have prepared a nasty trap for us here." "You've got that right, laddie," Gurney grumbled. "This might as well be a prison planet for House Lincoln. We can't leave until we complete our sentence. Even then, going home doesn't seem to be an option," English said. His tone as bitter as spiced coffee dregs. "Not for most of us." Jesse studied the scarred crew manager, whom Tuek had approved. In the days when House Lincoln had fared better, English's grandfather had been on close terms with Jesse's. English seemed competent and dependable enough, but Jesse knew there were no certainties in life. Risks had to be taken. He had to rely on people. But people are prone to fallibility, he thought, and betrayal. They change with every breath they take. Nevertheless, he made up his mind. He looked around the table. Even though most of the sand miners here are, or were, convict laborers, I do not consider them slaves. I've worked with the people on Catalan, watched them take pride in the most menial tasks, if they had some reason to do so. I intend to give the people on Dune World a reason to work hard. Our only chance of winning this challenge is if the populace is on our side. We can't do it without them. Very few workers are here on Dune World by choice, my lord, English said. The Huskiners ground them under their heel, worked them to death, stole their hope as soon as they transferred here from prison planets. Then I will give them hope. For their benefit, and for ours, I will show them that I am different from Valdemar Hoskiner. Jesse flashed a hard smile. "General Tuek, Mr. English, I want you to put out the word. Inform the sand miner crews that if House Lincoln wins this challenge, I give my oath as a nobleman that every freed man shall have his passage off planet. I'll pay for it myself if I have to." "My lord," Tuek said, "House Lincoln doesn't have the finances for that, nor can we afford to lose all of our most experienced crewmen." "Esmar, if we win the challenge, then we will have sufficient spice income to pay for it. We can begin training the senior convict laborers to take over for the freedmen, and perhaps we can entice some of the freedmen to stay. English's eyes sparkled. My comrades will be extremely glad to hear this news, my lord. Jesse drew a deep breath, knowing he had stepped off a precipice, and he only hoped he could survive the landing. Though, though Lincoln family finances had improved under his stewardship, his family's credit standing remained low, thanks to the damages his father and brother had done. To fund this bold and risky venture, he had borrowed large sums from the Imperial Bank and reluctantly accepted aid from a few politically allied houses. In scrambling for money, Jesse had been chagrined to discover that many of the noble families who had prodded him into contesting the Hoskinair monopoly now refused to support him when it counted most. He'd felt like an unprepared victim, thrown into an arena while others cheered or jeered from the safety of their seats, casting wagers as to his fate. Jesse should have expected little else from most of them. Despite all obstacles, though, he was determined to win the spice challenge. He had to get the workers on his side. Once he broke the Hoskinair monopoly, he would share the profits as he saw fit, rewarding his few supporters lavishly and leaving others in the financial deep freeze. This planet is a treasure chest, he thought, and I must find the key to open it. I choose the course of dignity and honor, though it may have been a foolish one. Jesse slumped into his high-backed chair. If only I knew more about how much the Hoskinairs were producing here. Tuek brought out a document, slapped it on the table, and slid it over to Jesse. I do have a little something for you, my lord. Jesse recognized columns of spice production figures. Hoskinair numbers for the past 2 years? Where did you get this? From an impeccable source. The old veteran looked at English. The new spice foreman said, I wasn't that significant when the Hoskinairs were here, but documents did get passed around to compare month-by-month results and motivate the spice foremen into competing with one another. They made copies for internal purposes and lost track of some of them. Tuek added, William had to call in a lot of favors for this information, but it makes for interesting reading. Excellent, Jesse said. Now we'll know where we stand. Or how far behind we are, Gurney suggested, with a smirk. Look at the numbers, laddie. Jesse whistled. If these figures are right, the Hoskinairs produced an incredible amount of melange. Has this much spice been distributed throughout the Empire? I had no idea its use was so widespread. Tuek cautioned. Could be a trick. Inflated amounts. But Jesse shook his head. If this was a trick, Valdemar would have underreported to escape imperial tariffs and lull us into a false sense of security. Studying the document, Gurney said, Sorry to state the obvious, laddie, but the Hoskinairs had a whole fleet of spice processing machinery. The 12 decrepit spice harvesters and 3 old carryalls they left us are not nearly adequate. The equipment spends more time in repair shops than in service, English said. The Hoskiner scum took the most qualified crews with them, too. Paid them a bonus for not helping us, including passage off-world. Though the scarred spice foreman glowered at the injustice, Jesse suspected that English himself would have taken the offer had the Hoskinairs made it to him. Only 81 experienced freedmen stayed behind, Tuek said. And our workers from Catalan need a lot of training. We've got a long way to go. Jesse stood and began pacing. I expected some of this. Immediately after accepting the challenge, I had Dorothy order 6 new spice harvesters and 2 more carryalls from the Exian Machine Works, even paid for rush delivery. Jesse grimaced. Last night, after the inspection tour, I sent for 6 more spice harvesters and another carryall. Can you afford it, my lord? Tuek asked. More than I can afford not to. That's 12 new harvesters and 12 old ones, Gurney said. Still less equipment than the Hoskiners had. Then we'll just have to work harder and smarter than they did, Jesse said. According to Dorothy, we've sold most of our valuable family heirlooms and mortgaged everything else. She says we're not stretching the budget, we're breaking it. He sighed. But what choice do we have if we want to win? For the survival of House Lincoln, we must win. English self-consciously rubbed the waxy scar tissue on his cheek. The Hoskiners had a lot of trouble with the weather. Sand ate into the biggest spice harvesters and damaged the factory modules. The dust here is more corrosive and statically charged than anyone expected. Even with 30 harvesters, at least a quarter of them were down for repairs at any one time. He paused. But there is a way to improve on that, I think. The room fell silent. Looking at Jesse, the spice foreman cleared his throat. The Grand Emperor said this game has no rules, right? Jesse nodded. It'd be nice to have that work to our advantage for a change. The Emperor's first inspection crew set up advance bases out in the desert, sealed structures that have been sitting there for years, filled with machinery and supplies. Some of my freedmen know where they are. Everything's in perfect working order, because they used live rubber shielding over the structures. Never heard of it, Tuek said. And a very expensive material. It's incredibly malleable. It could be fitted over the engine housings and other sensitive areas to keep sand out of harvesters. There might not be enough live rubber shielding for all the machines, but it'll definitely help. I've thought about it for years, but never got around to suggesting it to the Hoskiners. I was nobody to them, and they probably wouldn't have listened anyway. He smiled. Besides, I've rather enjoyed watching them struggle. Doesn't that property belong to the Emperor? Tuek pointed out. Technically. No rules. The Emperor said it himself. Gurney was grinning. Dune World has a way of making its own rules, English said. Jesse made up his mind. We raid the advanced bases. Deep in thought, he took a sip of spiced coffee. As he gazed through the ploughs toward the sands, he could feel the soothing effects of melange. Collect all the data compiled by advanced survey teams and as much intelligence as you can find about the spice operations of the Hoskiners. We'll need access to that information before we can rise above their mistakes and reach another level. Otherwise, we won't know what we're doing. Dorothy burst into the conference room. Her face flushed. We've just received an emergency transmission, my lord. A carryall broke down and stranded one of the spice harvesters. They're calling for an emergency rescue before a worm comes. We have 2 other carryalls, don't we? Jesse asked. Send one quickly. Now English looked distressed. Sir, one carryall is in the repair depot, and the other is in a spice field near the equator, much too far away. They'll never get there in time. What about all those men? Jesse demanded. Isn't there a full spice crew on that harvester? Dorothy's face darkened. They shut down operations and dampened their noise and vibrations, but even if they lie low, they're sure a sandworm will come soon. Jesse fairly lunged out of the room. William, get me our fastest transport shuttles. Anything that can carry crewmen. We'll save as many as we can. Gurney, Esmar, come with me. There's no time to lose. And that is the end of chapter 5.